in regards to the Affordable Housing Incentive Program. We have a motion in front of us this evening. Director McTavish, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to members of council. So I provided you with a draft copy of the manager report. We have been working with the developer for probably about now a year and a half now on, first it began with a parcel of property, and we believe we're very close to having this developer build 12 affordable housing units in the city of Miramichi. And this is just to give you an idea of first the scope. So again, on the affordable housing incentive grants that we provide, if they qualify, they get $10,000 per unit. So this developer is proposing 12 units. And we've had some conversations with Social Development and also with CMHC, just to verify, first of all, that it looks like this project's going to go ahead, and we believe it is. So this is more of a notice that we're going to bring something forward, but also within those conversations, we've identified some, I guess, beneficial modifications to the existing program that we have. So what we may do first is request that council consider the modifications. And what those modifications would include is the way that Social Development and Social Development and the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation advance their money is on progress payments. So CMHC, providing the majority of the funding and assuming most of the risks, wants to advance last. Social Development falls in the second place. So the city of Miramichi would fall into first. And so what they're asking is that if we could, based on their progress payment schedule, if we could be the first to advance money, then the province of New Brunswick would advance their money, and then Canada Mortgage and Housing would be the third. So that is what the proposed amendments would be to the affordable housing plan or program. Sorry.
Thanks, Director McTavish. Councillor Russ Robinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So to understand this, are you proposing, or is it being proposed, that we advance the money prior to shovels in the ground?
Through the chair to Councillor Ross Robinson, no, not at all. What I'm proposing is that we do progress advances. So let's say that the developer develops the foundation, that's 25% of the project, just like your mortgage kind of works. So Social Development and CMHC would look at that and say, okay, at this point, and there's a checklist for all of the points that they have. When you achieve 25% of project completion, they send in an inspector. The inspector goes in and goes through the list. They said, okay, you've achieved 25%. You're now allotted 25% of the funding. Okay, so they built 25% of the building. We would advance 25% at that time, as would Social Development, as would CMHC. At 50%, the same process goes through. Someone does an inspection. We advance the next 25 up to 75, and then at 100% completion, our last 25% is, and that's the way that they do it in their program delivery.
Yep, still to you, Councillor.
So follow up. So if that was to go through and we would advance in increments, and then the project falls through and doesn't get done, we're out the coin? Or is there any way to get the money back if the project doesn't finish?
Well, in this particular case, this was one of the pieces of property that the city of Miramichi offered up for the purpose of affordable housing. Okay, so we have in our purchase and sale agreement a condition that states that if the project is not completed within a 3-year period, that the project or the property can revert back to the city, and all improvements that were made in that revert to the city. The city is not responsible for paying for that. So we, in this particular case, and in future cases, it is going to have to be considered. But in this one, we are protected by the fact that we control the property.
I'm struggling with this. It sounds to me like it's a loan. The way we developed this program was that once something was completed, then they would get the money and that would offset whatever. I struggle with advancing the money before it's completed. I have to wrap my head around that. It's not sitting with me.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Harris.
Same sentiments for sure. I mean, city's not a bank. I mean, if the person or people that are building this are looking for installments of 25, 15, 75% from all three levels, then I mean, what are they putting into it? And to own the property at the end of it, at a project that maybe is half completed, it doesn't really leave a good taste for taxpayers. I don't think that when they drive by that we spent $120,000 on a project that's half done, that's worth nothing to us. So I would struggle with this unless the manager with his old hat as a lawyer can tell me that we're protected and going to get our $120,000 back if the project's not completed, then I would never support being a bank here at the City of Miramichi.
I can tell you if the motion that's before you is to give it out under the policy, which means they get it when it's done. I know that in the last couple of days, we've received information from this developer that has been confirmed by CMHC that there may be challenges to us keeping that practice. So what I'm saying is we are looking at whether you should change your policy to something that the director's talking about. I've got hesitation, you know, I've got real worries because, as the councillor said, you know, it sounds like a loan. And the City of Miramichi, no city's allowed to lend money to anybody. So I'd have to work through this. This is not something we can, you know, hopefully within a couple of weeks we can finalize. And I guess the only comfort I can give you is none of those issues are before you, because those are things that we have to look at in the next week or so. If this developer is willing to go on the terms that the policy has now, you might not have an issue. But if they continue, if they request that we modify the terms, it'll have to come back here.
So I think it's still to you,
Yeah,
Councillor.
just that, you know, that's great, Manager. And to Director McTavish, I mean, great project. That's what we're looking for in the city. It's nothing against that, Jeff, at all. It's just the matter to Councillor Ross Robbins' point too. I mean, we can't loan money to other taxpayers. It's the 18,000 citizens that we have to answer to. So if it can stay to the notes and that are before us, great. If not, then obviously, Manager Mike, you got some work to do.
Councillor, you wanted to, I'll go back to you. I'll consider it a continuation.
Thank you, Worship. And just one more point. We spent a lot of time over a couple of years tweaking and fine-tuning this affordable housing incentive program. And we haven't really had an opportunity to see it come to fruition. And I would really struggle with making such a huge change to it when we've worked so hard to get something that is black and white and easy to, it's not easy, but it's, you know, it keeps council out of the equation and it keeps economic development in the know. And I really struggle with making a huge change to a policy that is relatively new, that we really did work a long time and work hard on.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll go to Councillor DePlacy next.
I agree with that there is a level of risk. I suspect that we won't see developers coming to put their own cash on the line to build affordable housing because there's no business case for it. But you need to be leveraging other people's money to be able to build these developments, especially new. So I think if we don't look to be flexible and widen the door for developers to build this type of unit, we just won't see it happen. We'll just have a nice policy that's safe and safeguarded. And to this point, we haven't seen, there's not a lineup of developers looking to develop affordable housing. We have one after all these years. So I think that's something that we do have to meet in the middle. The opportunity that we have to safeguard this with the land ownership, I think, is valuable. I think there is hesitation for developing a precedent, but there's a very urgent matter, and shovels in the ground should be the goal, I think, here.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Johnson, would you like to go? I'd like to speak too, but you had your hand up if you would like to go first. Thank you, and thanks, Director McTavish. Obviously, it is a complex issue, and it's one that I've spent we have at this table and as a group spent a lot of time in your department as well, Director McTavish, working on in terms of housing incentives, and one that I've spent a lot of time on at the federal level as well at the FCM table. But I want to make sure that it's clear, because we do have two incentives. One is the downtown housing incentive, and one is the affordable housing incentive. And under the affordable, what Director McTavish is speaking about, this particular project, is maybe not just affordable housing, but in fact social housing. And so maybe, Director McTavish, as you're reconsidering adjustments to the program, we kind of create within the affordable program a subsection for social housing. So I don't know how much we're allowed to say, but part of the part of what's available from the terms of the provincial side of things is that these will be 12 new units of that are guaranteed to be funded for 20 years of social housing in our community. That is desperately needed. And to Councillor Duplessis' point, we have yet to figure out any other way of how to get these built. And so, I mean, we always have to be good stewards of the taxpayer money. And if it was the downtown program, this would be a non-starter for me. And even if it was affordable market housing, it would still be a no. But to me, under the social housing component, the goal of the program is to align with the programs offered by CMHC and the Social Development. And to that point, we haven't seen anybody come through this program yet. And recognizing that the CMHC and Social Develop require these funds to be dispersed in this particular way in order for their funds to be triggered as well, it strikes me as the options available to us are, come back, and we'll look to have a proposal, and if council wants to defeat it, that's fine. But the program as it's currently structured will not facilitate building these houses. And the program as currently structured says we would, in fact, the motion to be considered for us tonight is to provide $120,000. So we're now talking about when we would disperse that. And to me personally, if we need to disperse that in quarterly chunks to ensure that these units get built, and the alternative is that they don't get built, then I'm personally willing to be flexible in that disbursement once the due diligence is done. So that would be my perspective. And in terms of what's on the docket tonight, it's a letter of commitment. I think we could perhaps still move that forward while Director McTavish works on a proposed amendment to the program that we can consider at a future committee meeting. And I would look forward myself to seeing that. Councillor Arsenault.
Just a clarification, I guess, that I need and to the manager. A few minutes ago, and I don't know, I just missed it, I guess, but a few minutes ago you were talking about CMHC and Social Development providing that funding, and so the part that I'm not understanding, are they indicating that if we do not change our policy going forward that there will be challenges from their perspective to us, or that we're going to have challenges getting these built, or that I'm unclear about what that statement was about.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out exactly what their position is, to be honest. This is the first time we've gotten anything concrete where I think the lady is from CMHC or MB, I don't know if it's the province, Jeff, that is trying to lay out for us in the last day or so how they propose. The CMHC. So, it would appear that they have requirements that say, this money has to be in there. Now, one of the options is to change your policy and to assume right now your policy has no risk for the city. The place is built. You could decide to assume some risk. Somebody else asked me, what's the other option? I said, the developer could lend $120,000 to his company, build the buildings, and when he's done and gets our money, pay himself back. There's an option. Whether that's feasible, I don't know, but it satisfies the legal requirements. I understood, however, that council at some point wanted to spur this on, and I guess it's going to come down to a question of how much you want to risk to assume to get this done, because to Councillor Duplessis' point, the policy that we drafted was always meant to be, it working in conjunction with the other two levels of government. And I can tell you, we were unaware when we drafted this, that this issue of you got to put your own money in the bank first came up. So, you know, we're going to have to work it out over the next week to 10 days to get exactly what their requirements are.
So still to you, Councillor Arsenault, and then to you, Councillor Johnston.
Just to finish off on that, so, because my concern here is that just as the programs used to be on a, you know, in order to get the federal funding, you had to get provincial commitment and funding. My concern is that if we are not ready to provide, and I understand the work that's been done on the policy, and I can appreciate that. My concern is that if we are not ready to provide our portion of that funding as they are laying it out, that it won't happen in the long run. And that concerns me, because yes, we absolutely have to be conscious and strong in our stewardship of public funds, but part of our responsibility also lies in assisting those that are most vulnerable in our city, and that policy lies around you know, supporting those who need housing.
Thanks, Councillor Arsenault. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Although I do appreciate the sensitivity of the issue, and that we are indeed to be stewards of those that are suffering in our community, quite frankly, and in need of housing. Housing, having a safe, comfortable, warm place to live is indeed a standard human right, and we all want to see Marmosheers in a safe, comfortable, warm place to live. Having said that, the city is not a bank. We do not loan money. I tend to agree with Councillor Ross Robinson in the sense that I do believe that the assumability of risk, the way the policy sits now, I don't see a need for it to change. I think with time, if there's a contractor out there that wants to make a viable investment, as was alluded to by the city manager, and share some of the risk with the city, then have at it. Invest your money, do the build, and see it through to success. But I do not believe that the assumability of risk for any file should be on the taxpayer of Miramichi. Therefore, I do support the policy as is. I would ask that we go back to the contractor and look at different options that we can help them meet with success, think win-win, keeping the end goal in mind. The second piece to my comment would be the excellent advocacy and efficient communication both with the federal government via the Canada Mortgage and Housing Department and the provincial government through social development. Kudos to staff. Well done. It's great to see that happen. Those lines of communication in order to solicit provincial and federal funding are absolutely essential to every major file in our city. And I hope that trend continues with other major files with the city that we have concurrent to affordable housing. Now, I want to see this through. I want to see it meet with success. I want us to help everybody that we possibly can help. But again, my point is the assumability of risk for any file should not totally be on the taxpayer of Miramichi, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnston. So I think what we would all like is to make sure we have a super clear picture of what needs to happen here for CMHC and social development, because it was my understanding that if we didn't do our allotments in the same quarterly fashion, that the project couldn't move forward because their money then wouldn't be on the table anymore. So I think we need to make sure that we give the director the time to gather all the information and bring it back. But in the meantime, tonight, I think what's in front of us is to move forward with the program as it is currently written. And so, I think we proceed with that while we wait for the information to consider an alternative disbursement. So is there anything, I guess, further on the item that is in front of us? And if not, I'll ask if there's a member of council who would make a motion to move this one forward. Okay, so Councillor Ross Robinson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Quinn. So on this one, on the question, All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.